Imagine you're alone at night and you get that unmistakable feeling, the guttural churning instinct that someone has eyes on you. Maybe they're following you. Maybe they're stalking and waiting for you to approach a corner so that they can pop out and grab you. Maybe they're even in your car waiting for the perfect time where you're vulnerable enough to be snatched up. Well, that's the feeling that Dexter brings to all of his victims, only they aren't some innocent bystanders caught in some spider's trap. They're people who arguably deserve their fate. Because Dexter is no ordinary serial killer. He has a code that makes it feel like his vigilantism is an ultimate good. Whether or not it is truly up for debate though. You see, Dexter targets other serial killers. He works at Miami Metro Police with his sister Deb following the footsteps of their late father, Harry Morgan. The blood spatter analyst is privy to cases that involve serial offenders and takes it upon himself to obscure evidence from the police or go after criminals who have been thrown out of the system back into society on a technicality, causing a moral conundrum with viewers. Regardless of whether or not you think Dexter is a good guy or a bad guy, few shows are as societally impactful as this one. It is a cultural phenomenon that can't be understated. Dexter's charm ultimately comes from the fact that he grapples with the essence of feelings. He was born into a dark situation and deems himself to be quote-unquote born in blood. He calls the part of himself that wants to take lives the dark passenger, and it is important that he understand the rules of the game that his father has created. His adoptive father, Harry, saw in Dexter what others probably could already sense. He knew his personality seemed different, especially when animals go missing around the neighborhood. In Season 8, Dr. Vogel, a psychiatrist working with Miami Metro on a new case, gives Dexter a bit more backstory about the origin of the code that he follows in adulthood. She worked with him and Harry to address the situation and decided to do something unorthodox. Instead of trying to psychologically treat Dexter, they decided to roll with his differences and create a pathway that leads to his skills being put to use in a way that can contribute something positive to society. Dexter vets his victims meticulously in order to gather information that paints a picture without a shadow of a doubt that that person is worthy of Dexter's table. Once he deems them worthy, Dexter adds them to his table. With plastic wrap and a knife, Dexter gets to work. First, making sure that he takes a trophy for himself, a small drop of blood for his slide collection. One thing about Dexter in the older seasons is that they always had you on your toes. It was this constant worry about how Dexter was going to get out of every situation. The more he tried to hide who he was, the more nerve-wracking it really became for the audience. He would meet like-minded people along the way, joining forces or butting up against like a game of cat and mouse with some of his future victims, all while trying to maintain a facade to the Miami Metro Police and his family about who he truly was. It always felt a bit cathartic to hear Dexter relate to and open up with people who were more like him or people who accepted him the way that he was. It was interesting to watch the dynamic between him and Rita as it grew into an entire family. It was sad to see the dream of that family shattered as a direct result of Dexter's decisions. The stakes were always high, higher than any show that I can think of really. Episode by episode, season by season, things seemed to get riskier as we watched our anti-hero stumble through life trying to be something he is not. But Dexter was never really limited to trying to hide in the shadows. Every season, Dexter was learning more and more about himself. So today, I'm going to refresh your memory season by season about the emotional beats that created the Dexter that we know and love today. At the end of this trip down memory lane, I'll talk about the newest series, Resurrection, and why I think it's a perfect spinoff and where it can go from here. If you like content like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button because I make videos every week, either a trailer reaction or it will be a deep dive like this one. Let's get started. In season 1, we learned more about Dexter through his brother Brian, someone who would ultimately be discovered as the ice truck killer. His brother represented the repressed parts of Dexter that hadn't surfaced. Memories about Dexter's past flooded him as he tried to understand the connection between himself and the ice truck killer. He also took the time to learn how to navigate a romantic relationship in season 1. At first, Rita was only there for optics. She was supposed to be something that bolstered this family man image that Dexter wanted to portray. In later seasons, she became much more than a beard. She became a way that the audience could see Dexter as more than just a killer. She propped him up in a way that made him seem like he was genuinely torn between two worlds, one that he had control of and one that he really didn't. It also put a barrier between himself and his dark passenger, which helped to give this show an edge because he didn't just have free reign to do whatever he wanted, he had to engage with his family to save face. In this season, we were really just getting to know Dexter, his personality, his backstory, and where it was going to go. Season 2, we met Lila, and Dexter did his best to stop engaging in his proclivities. At this point, Dexter was feeling a lot more into Rita, and he really wanted to lean into the family man aspect of his life, thinking that maybe he could change who he was. The death of his brother, or really him having to kill his brother, had weighed heavy on him in Season 1, and that trickled into Season 2. He had become self-destructive. His secrets, although not linked to him, are also out of this season, and that gives him a bit of a shock. He needed a drastic change, and Lila helped him achieve that, until she didn't. We learned in this season that Dexter has a lot more emotional range than Harry had initially given him credit for, or so it seemed. Later, that would all be up for a kind of debate with Dr. Vogel, but for now, it seemed as if Dexter was capable of far more than the first season had let on. He cared about Rita, and he cared about her children in a way that seemed authentic, although Lila presented herself as this woman who could handle all sides of Dexter, and she sort of took him away from Rita too. She lost her cool, and Dexter was no longer interested in her. She ended up on his table for having taken more than a few people out herself. So she fit his code. There are a couple iterations of Dexter wanting this massive change in his life to stop doing what he's doing or to toggle between his family and what he's doing, but it ultimately always ends up the same way with dire consequences. Season 3 was great because we met Miguel Prado, an assistant district attorney who Dexter meets when he accidentally kills his brother. Oops. Anyways, he and Miguel strike up an unusual friendship when Miguel notices that Dexter is into vigilante justice. Prado loves the idea and asks Dexter to bring him along. He eventually starts making his own decisions about how to take out people and what people to take out next, which becomes problematic for Dexter because Prado is an idiot and starts taking out people whom he is acquainted with politically. He is sloppy and essentially out of control. But in this season, we get to see that Dexter is capable of friendship and just wants someone who can relate to him. The friendship and the camaraderie that the two have help Dexter feel like he could be himself, that someone could see all the parts of him and still want to be around him, not only want to be around him, but want to be best friends with him. Season 4 sees a new big bad, the Trinity killer. Trinity wasn't playing around like Brian Moser. He was a very prolific serial killer that had reigned for decades without being caught before this point. He was able to traipse about America and set his spree into motion wherever he went. More than anything, he was a family man, and Dexter got to know Trinity on the download to gain tips and tricks about how to be a serial but also have a family. Trinity's family looked really happy and put together on the outside, but soon Dexter realizes that he was torturing his wife and kids. He was hurting them to keep them perfect looking. Dexter was a newly married man with a new baby at the time, and this obviously didn't jive with the unmistakable love that he had for his family. No longer able to keep up the facade, Dexter allowed Trinity, honestly, just too much time. He kept him too close. He paid the ultimate price for that too. Rita was taken out by Trinity in an oddly familiar scene. Harrison, Dexter's son, was now born in blood. The family man that Dexter had wanted to become was now over. He was alone. So in this season, it was very important to focus on Dexter and how he was trying to have this life on the side and this family. And Trinity gave him this hope, this goal to be that. Once he saw who Trinity was, he realized that's not realistic for Trinity, but that it could be realistic for him. Overall, obviously, that did not work out. Season 5 saw Dexter being a bit reckless like in Season 1, while also trying to gain hold of his new life as a single dad. He was obviously grieving at this point. This season creates not only one big bad, but an entire syndicate of people who R-word and place women in vats in order to bury the evidence. These are influencer type people who are practicing nefarious things on the side. When he saves a woman who had been captured by the syndicate, she asks to team up with him in order to exact her revenge. Weary at first, Dexter eventually allows her in on his scheme, and they become a cool killing duo, taking the people involved in her kidnapping out one by one. Deb eventually spots the two when they are in the middle of taking out the main group leader, but she leaves it alone. Dexter seems to move on with Lumen, but ultimately she heads her separate ways. She's not permanently stuck in whatever is happening. She wanted to get her revenge and just go. The entire season, we see this laser focus on what Dexter is good at. We see that he is protecting Lumen in a way that he didn't protect Rita, maybe because he wasn't aware that he could be duped. He got careless and wrapped up in season 4 to the point where he didn't notice the danger sitting right in front of him. He was able to kind of make up for that with Lumen, make her fears and sadness go away by protecting her, and also kind of watching her protect herself. Season 6 is a weird sort of departure, to be honest. A lot of religious nuttiness that kind of detracts from the show and the main focus, but it leans so heavily into the religion and religious iconography that it kind of gets distracting. They really ham this up. But in this season, Dexter learns about forgiveness and moving on. Instead of keeping the hate that he's had in his heart, he forgives himself for his past mistakes. He wants to turn over a new leaf and see what kind of person he can be if he isn't always stuck in a moral dilemma. As much as he would like to be a different person, he sees that change is ultimately not in the cards for him. He is here to protect people, and he will continue to do that for as long as he can. He comes to grips with who he is, what he wants for his life, and now that he can forgive himself for everything that happened, all of the innocent people who were taken out, even if it was an indirect consequence of his actions, they died, but he's back. He also has the added bonus of not having to hide who he is from Deb anymore because she walks in on one of his kills. Season 7, we meet Hannah, and Dexter is smitten. We haven't seen Dexter so sure about someone pretty much the entire show. Sadly, he seems more sure about Hannah than he did Rita, and you could argue that he met Rita in the infancy of figuring out what he wanted, that he even wanted a family. So it looked a bit different. You could also argue that Hannah presents as a better option, just generally because she is also a serial killer. Either way, they hit it off. Hannah kills, but she does it with a poison, and she's largely indiscriminate with who she targets. It's mostly just people who are in her way. So she definitely needs to be on his table, but she doesn't end up there. Or she does, but it's a fake out. She has a sordid backstory, and Dexter helps her overcome her mentally abusive father. He relates to her, but it's her almost taking Deb out that Dexter ultimately pulls back from the relationship. He doesn't take her out, but he has the police come and get her, so it's a different sort of taking it. Meanwhile, he is feeling guilty because Deb is constantly in her head about who he is. It's ruining her one moment at a time. He hates that she knows this side of him, but there's nothing he can do about it. His love for the women in his life grows so much this season. This is where the show seems to sort of take a sharper turn with his emotional growth. He's always cared about people and loved Deb, but it is so much more noticeable in the season. Hannah points out in this season also that Dexter's dark passenger and himself are one and the same. They are not different parts of him. He is who he is, and he really just needs to accept that. In season 8, Hannah returns, but this time she's not really out for Dexter and his sister. She's just trying to get away from her billionaire boyfriend. But Dr. Vogel enters the chat and starts talking to Dexter about his childhood. You see, this is something that Dr. Vogel does. She takes on young serials and tries to rehabilitate them. Dexter is the only one that she's had a code for, though. One of her patients is after her, and she uses Dexter to kind of hunt him down and protect her. Deb continues to spiral because she killed LaGuarta when she was sniffing around too much. She feels a responsibility to Dexter, and it makes sense that she's losing it, I guess, even though she could have just shut the door and let Dexter do his thing. Anyway, it seems like Dexter has his hands full and he is frustrated at Deb for not letting him back into her life. This is where we really start to address whether or not Dexter truly loves the people in his life or if he just sees them as a means to an end for himself. He has to take a good, hard look at whether he is truly a psychopath, and Dr. Vogel grapples with what that even means at the end of the day. Is Dexter mimicking emotions, or is it him actually having emotional capacity? If so, does this mean that the trajectory of Dexter's life might have changed with the right help instead of developing this code? We'll never know because this is the end of the series. Harrison heads to Argentina with Hannah and they live okay ever after. And Dexter, well, it's up for debate. Obviously, Dexter is still alive, so he kind of throws Deb's body into the ocean and moves on. So how does this emotional growth play into the new series, Dexter Resurrection? In this series, we see Dexter continue to juggle family man and vigilante, but in a very different way. He's more upfront and focused. He won't make the same mistakes that he did before. He's seen the catastrophic consequences that come with being tripped up, to not pay attention enough. And he won't let what happened to Rita, Deb, and countless others happen to Harrison. He did his best to avoid what happened to Angel, and it couldn't have been avoided. Ultimately, that was Angel's choice. Harrison, having full knowledge of who his dad is, gives him a leg up when it comes to keeping himself safe. And I think that's the true difference between Harrison and all the other people who have lost their lives because of Dexter's decisions. Dexter has taught Harrison how to keep his guard up. So it's like a culmination of all the things that Dexter had learned throughout the first series, what mistakes he made, how to circumvent them, how to notice things before getting caught up and distracted. He's also learning that there is no way to keep his dark passenger separate from his family life. So if you're going to be in Dexter's life, you need to know how to keep it safe. That's the trade-off that Harrison is making, but Dexter will always protect Harrison first. And hell is the reminder that Dexter needed to remember that no one in his life, as long as he does what he does, is ever really going to be safe. I'm looking forward to season 2 of Resurrection and the last episode of the show. This has been one of the best spin-offs that I've ever seen. Honestly, I could say ever. The fact that producers were able to continue the thrilling sense of emotional depth and wonder about what will happen next is truly amazing. I love the feeling that I get when I watch Dexter, and I feel the same exact way in the new series. This series has really just seamlessly threaded itself into the older seasons. My predictions are that Dexter and Harrison will be forced to leave New York. There is too much chaos going on to stay, and if they don't get Prater, then it is likely he will just continue to be a threat to them for as long as he's around. Obviously, I can't predict too much because at this point, I have no idea what will happen in the series finale, but drop your comments about predictions when it comes out. I think it would be really cool to see Harrison and Dexter as like a vigilante duo in different towns. It's kind of what I was hoping for in the first place, so maybe I'm just going off of my own biases. Anyway, let me know what you think about Dexter's emotional growth, as well as what they're going to do with this next season of the series, and I will see you next time for the next video. Bye!